Welcome back to Weighing In With Lindsie. So far, this podcast has been mostly about my weight loss journey. And don't worry, that's not going anywhere. I'm still on that journey. But there's more to life than weight. And I want this podcast to reflect the real life. The messy, the funny, the faith, the real stuff. Sometimes the things that we don't want to talk about. So, this week we're shifting into a 2-part series on addiction, and we're starting with my story. In previous episodes, I have talked about my mom passing away when I was young and food becoming a big part of my life. It was a comfort, it was a friend, it was an addiction. But it was an addiction that was accepted. It was not, sure, when the weight started coming, there was concern. There was, forced dieting. There was, different things like that. But overall, as a society, food addiction is not seen as a problem. But that's not the addiction that I want to focus on today. And if you know me, this one may come as a shock. And I'm sorry for that. But it's my life, and here we go. So, in addition to my mom passing when I was young, alcohol was a big part of the story at my house. My dad and my stepmom drank heavily throughout the years of my childhood. I had many other family members who struggled with alcohol, and I swore that would never be me. I judged pretty harshly those that did struggle and questioned, why can't they just stop? I mean, can't they see what it's doing to them? Alcohol is so awful. It doesn't even taste good. Why do they do it? Why? And so as I got a little older, alcohol became, a social thing. I was a little more mature and thought, it's okay. I can have a margarita with dinner. I can have a beer here and there. I can hang out with friends and get a little silly. And then COVID happened. I was, I think, one of the first people I knew that got COVID. And y'all, when I got the news that I had COVID, I was terrified. The physical sickness was awful. It was awful. I couldn't breathe. I ended up on oxygen. I couldn't walk down the hall to the bathroom without feeling like I was going to pass out because I couldn't breathe. I was using my inhaler. I mean, I've had asthma for, I don't know, all my life maybe. But rarely had a time where I had to use my inhaler if I wasn't sick. I use my inhaler daily. I mean, the physical sickness, it was awful. But the emotional and spiritual hit, that was something entirely different. I saw people who had COVID who it was like a cold and they recovered and it was no big deal. I saw other people who unfortunately did not make it. So, I mean, it was a very scary and unknown time for a lot of people. But for me, the isolation was hard and I was exhausted, but I also became very angry. I was angry at my circumstances. Why me? Why can I not get better? I was angry at my body. I felt like my body had betrayed me. And I was angry at God. Why? I've been through so much in life already. Why am I dealing with this too? I had just got married not even a year before this and had a great start to my marriage, and then all of a sudden I'm sick and my whole life got flipped upside down. And so I was so mad. I didn't know what to do. Church shut down because of the quarantine, and so, it was online and I watched, but it's just not the same. It's not the same. You don't have that community. But again, I'm not sure how much I'm not sure how much that mattered because I was so angry at God for letting this happen to me anyway. And like I said, I had at this point had a drink here and there. But during this time I started drinking to numb the pain. Sorry. I started drinking as a way to numb the pain, to not have to think about the situation I was in, to not have to think about how sick I was, how it might impact my marriage, how it might impact, everything. Am I going to make it? So I had that couple drinks here and there for, maybe a couple of weeks. And looking back, it didn't happen like, I don't know, I say it didn't happen right away, but it feels like it kind of did. It started out with 1 or 2 drinks, and very quickly, it seems, became a 12-pack a day. Sometimes more. And I told myself, it was temporary. I'm just doing this. I just need something to help me feel better, like take the edge off. It helped me to relax. It helped me to, be silly and cut up a little bit, instead of being so focused on how sick I was. It got bad fast. And before I knew it, I didn't know how to quit. I was ashamed, and I didn't want to tell anybody that I needed help. My husband, of course, knew. He was right there with me through it all. But I knew I wasn't doing, it wasn't good. I would beg Chris to go to the store to get my alcohol, my beer for the day, because I was so ashamed to even buy it. We have a store down the road from our house, and that was our store. It's still our store because that's the one we go to for any time, take the dogs to get a treat or whatever. That's our store. But during this time, it was our store, and I swear we kept them in business. And, on the weekends, it wasn't starting at 5 o'clock. It was 5 o'clock somewhere. But, I'd start drinking at lunchtime and, be out of beer before dark and want more. It was a bad time, y'all. It was such a bad time. And I was dealing with all kind of emotions like, okay, Lindsie, you judged these people and thought they were so awful for doing this, and here you are doing the same thing. Like, how can you let this happen? I would plan, on Christmas Day, you can't buy alcohol here. And so I would plan, I was like, okay, on Christmas Eve, I had to buy extra, so I had some for the next day. Yeah, it was so bad. Of course, I was already dealing with a weight issue, and this just added to it, because, calories, alcohol's nothing but empty calories. So, yeah, it was a bad time. It was such a bad time. And Chris didn't want to go to the store for me every day, so I would have to go to get it if I wanted it. And I had gotten to where I was so ashamed I didn't want to continue going to our store every day, so I would go to another store. And it got to the point where I think there were 3 different stores who knew the beer I drank. And if I happened to go in and not get beer, they questioned me. And I'm like, mind your business. I don't need you judging me. I would look over my shoulders when I was at the gas station to make sure no one from church saw me. I would not buy it in the grocery store or Walmart because inevitably every time I'm at one of those places, I see someone I know. And so I would make sure to buy it at a place where I thought no one would see me. Yeah. Not only was the shame at the store, though, the shame was at home. I hid empty bottles. I don't know if I was hiding them from myself or from Chris, but I would hide. And when I finally quit drinking, I can't tell you where I found empty bottles. It was embarrassing. And I can't even explain to you why I did that, because, obviously they were bought, they were drank. But the trash can would get full, and so I would stick them in just any random place. And I started going to counseling I started going to counseling in 2024, and I needed help. At this point, I knew I needed help. And I remember the counselor saying, "Do you want to quit?" And I said, "I want to, but I don't want to." And I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but it made sense to me. I was scared to quit. I was scared at this point, like I didn't know who I was without it. And I lived most of my life without it, but I had drank for every day for 4 years. And I was scared. I didn't know who I was without it. I didn't know what my relationship with my husband would be like, even though I was not a drinker when we met. At this point, for the majority of our relationship, I had been the drinker. And so I was scared of what that would look like. I was scared that I wouldn't be able to go to sleep at night because, I mean, I was drinking to the point where I basically passed out. I mean, like, I made it to the bed. I wasn't like passing out in the yard or anything, but I would make it to the bed and I'd hit the pillow and I was out. So I was scared that I wouldn't be able to sleep. I tried to quit, and I would say, it was just like the diet mentality. Okay, I'll quit on Monday, every Monday. For a while, it was, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. And inevitably, something would happen. I'd have a bad day at work, or, somebody would make me upset. Usually at work, because that's where I spent majority of days. So I would get stressed or whatever, and I'd come home, and that became the excuse. Oh, I had a bad day, I'm going to drink too, because at this point, I was on oxygen for about a year. So I was not on oxygen this whole time, but even after getting off, I still had problems breathing. My lungs still aren't the same as pre-COVID. But at this point, 4 years into the addiction, the sickness wasn't the excuse anymore because I was no longer on oxygen. I could do more physically, still not a lot, but I could do more. So the sickness was no longer the excuse. The excuse became whatever I needed it to be. It was a bad day at work. It was a good day at work, and I wanted to celebrate. Like, haha, this was great. So, any excuse to drink. And I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything because that meant I had to drive. And I didn't want to drive after drinking, so I wanted to sit at home and have my drinks. And I tried many times to quit on my own. Like I said, I started counseling. Counselor told me, she's like, okay, we're not going to strive for perfection. We're going to start with progress. So just cut back a little bit each day. And I found that pretty impossible because once I started, I couldn't have just one or two. I wanted to finish whatever was at home. If it was a 12-pack, a 6-pack, whatever it was, I felt like I had to finish it. It was kind of an all or nothing mentality. And I felt that way with quitting too. Like, if I can't quit, I don't even want to, like, I'm not going to cut back. It's got to be all or nothing. It's got to be perfection. So I tried many times without success to quit. And I'm very thankful that my husband loved me through all this. Because like I said, we had only been married. We had been married less than a year when this addiction took hold. And yeah, so I'm so thankful that God put a man in my life that loved me through it, who was there by my side, he didn't judge me. And he encouraged me, when I said I needed to quit, he's like, yeah, you do. We do. Because, he drank too. But he was able to say, I'm not going to have a beer and not have a beer. I was not so strong. So anyway, during this time, throughout these years, I was not attending church. I attended on and off. And when I wasn't there, I listened sometimes online, not every week. But even when I was there, I don't feel like I was truly engaged. I couldn't be truly engaged because I was too full of shame. I didn't feel worthy, and I am very thankful to be a part of a church that says, come as you are. You don't have to be perfect to come in these doors. But even, when I did go, like I said, I did not feel worthy. I judged myself. I condemned myself. But I didn't want to tell anybody. There were times that when I was at my worst and whatever, Chris would say, do I need to call somebody from church? And I should have said yes. I should have said, yeah, call somebody, I need help. But I said, no, I don't want anybody to know. I'm too ashamed. They'll judge me. They'll hate me. They'll, look at me different, whatever. So, yeah, I did not want anybody to know. And like I said, I tried many times to quit. And, I considered going to AA. I considered going to different treatment options. And I was encouraged to go by my counselor to different treatment facilities or programs. And I did attend some meetings online. I didn't really get much out of them. Again, though, I think it was I didn't want to quit. I wanted to want to, but I didn't want to. I tried an app that seemed to help, because I was like, okay, well, you put in each day, that you've stayed sober. And it was kind of a game, like, okay, well, I can reach this. And it was cool to see, how many calories I had saved by not drinking, how many, and, see how high I could get that number. And then I got to a certain point, and I was like, okay, well, and I'll tell you, it was my birthday. So I had quit. This is the beginning of this year. I went all of January with no drinking. And it was not because I wanted to quit. It was because it was like a start the new year challenge kind of thing. And then my birthday on February 1st, I was like, I'm going to celebrate. And I'm going to break this, month-long progress of not drinking. And I'm going to have a drink. And I had a drink at dinner. And then went to the store and got a 12-pack. And was right back into the depths of the addiction. And I think it was at that point that I realized how bad it was. That it was a stronghold that I didn't know how to break on my own. And I wish I could say that was the end, but it wasn't. I let myself keep going. And then I decided, at this point, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to get healthy. So I started considering and going through the process of getting weight loss surgery. And that process happened very quickly. And so I think I saw the doctor the first time in February, and I had the surgery at the beginning of April. So it was a very quick process. But part of that process was, you can't drink. So I was like, okay, this is what I need. It's for my health. Like, I cannot drink because it'll make me sick. I cannot drink because it could kill me. So I quit drinking again because I had to, though, because the doctor said. So 2 weeks before surgery, I started the pre-op diet. No alcohol, no, it was liquids for 2 meals, whatever. Had the surgery. Still, went on, like, knowing that I couldn't drink. And again, I can't remember what it was this time. I think we went out of town for the weekend. I was like, oh, we're on vacation for the weekend. I'm going to have a drink. And I'm telling y'all that opening the door just a little bit, when it's a true addiction, opening that door just a little bit, you can't close it real easy. So I had a drink. And knowing in my head, this is stupid. This is not what you need to do. It's not, your body can't handle this. Your liver is not, because you've had this major surgery, your body's not processing this right. Like, I'm telling myself all this, and I still, it's not like I liked the flavor. Like, I mean, I think on this trip I had a fruity drink, so it was not, at least it wasn't beer that tasted like whatever. But it was just still not something that I just enjoyed the drink. But I was looking for I don't know what I was looking for at that point. So again, I opened that door and I couldn't close it again. And I went home, and again, I was like, I kept telling Chris, one more day, or I'm going to start again on Monday. I'm not going to, I've got to, it'll just be on the weekends. But y'all, I was buying, I would say it was just the weekends, but I would buy a couple of tall ones and hide the fact that I was drinking. And, like, if I didn't know I had a problem before, I knew it at this point. But God was drawing me back. He was drawing me back. He left, the verse, he left the 99 for the one. I was the one that he was after. And I thank God that he was after me. He didn't give up. I didn't hit some rock bottom where I got in trouble or I lost my job because of drinking. I just hit this, I can't do this anymore. I was exhausted living two lives, hiding. I hated the hiding. I hated the shame. And I prayed and said, God, make my body as though I'd never had a beer. Make my taste buds as though I'd never tasted it. And he showed up. He showed up in a quiet moment of brokenness where I said, I need help. And I hadn't looked back. I hadn't looked back. And now I don't have shame anymore. I can tell my story. I can tell my story because it might help somebody else. There's hope. My chains didn't break because I was strong. I broke free because God stepped in and he broke the chains because I let him. It's not been easy. I've felt feelings that I didn't know I needed to feel. I think sometimes Chris gets a little overwhelmed because he doesn't know what to do with my emotions. And I don't know what to do with my emotions, to be honest. But I've cried more tears since I quit drinking than I have in a long time because I can feel again. And while sometimes that's very hard, it's very needed. Since that day, I knew that I wasn't fighting the battle by myself. My husband has been wonderful. He's been supportive. He's been great. But God has let me know that he is in charge. So, in closing, if you're listening right now and you're living in your own shame, your own addiction, your own secret, I want you to hear me. You're not dirty. You're not disqualified. You're not unworthy. You're not too far gone, and you're not beyond God's reach. If he can break my chains, the ones I wrapped around myself, he can break yours too. And y'all, this is just part one. Next week, part two, my cousin joins me, and we're talking about addiction from another angle. So stay tuned. And if you're struggling and you need help, if you need someone to talk to that understands, please reach out. I'm here. I'd be glad to talk you through anything that you need to talk through. The good news is you don't have to wait 2 weeks because this is a series. The next episode will be next Wednesday on December 17th. So I want to thank you for listening, watching me cry, for letting me be honest. Thank you. And I'll see y'all next week. Until then, this is Lindsie weighing in.